Robert Pattinson should not play Batman in the DCU, and I'm gonna explain exactly why. If you disagree, I promise this video will change your perspective, but I seem to be in the extreme minority of this opinion. People are constantly asking James Gunn if Matt Reeves' Batman films will be folded over into the grander narrative of the DCU, and even though he keeps saying no, that they're elseworlds, Matt is doing his own thing, he wants to focus on Gotham instead of worrying about the extended DC world, it doesn't matter. People just keep asking, and then they hang on to every word Gunn says, like it's a secret that he's hiding, or maybe he's privately trying to convince Matt Reeves to let him. But okay, let's take a step back here. What is this whole debate about, really? Why do people want Battinson in the DCU, and why don't I? First, let's define our terms. The Batman Epic Crime Saga is the title given to Matt Reeves' own take on Gotham City. That means the 2022 film The Batman, any direct sequels, and spin-offs like The Penguin. This universe has Batman, played by Robert Pattinson, a younger, moodier, more inexperienced Dark Knight. His Batmobile is basically just a souped-up car, as opposed to the sci-fi tanks and wall-driving monstrosities we've seen in the last few iterations of the character. He's not a perfect ninja with unparalleled combat tech. He has some very grounded metallic armor and a rudimentary wingsuit he's not great with using yet. And he didn't train with Tibetan monks to overcome Martian mind manipulation and build backup personalities stored away in his psyche. He's got insomnia and needs to record everything he sees on patrols to keep track of it all. This is a much more real take on Batman. I seriously doubt we're gonna see a comic-accurate Solomon Grundy in this world. I don't think Poison Ivy will use giant vines to strangle people. We're never going to see a Lazarus pit here. Hell, even Oswald Cobblepot, basically just a normal criminal guy, his name's been changed to Oz Cobb, because Cobblepot was too out there. My point is, this is a very grounded world with a very specific feel. Matt Reeves has a vision he wants to show us, and in case I buried the lead here, I love that vision. The Batman was absolutely sick. I adored the film. I love the focus on detective elements. This Bruce has such a dry humor with an incredible chemistry with Jim Gordon, Catwoman, Alfred. He's so quietly intelligent while exuding this palpable rage and trauma bubbling beneath a repressed, depressive surface layer. And do I need to talk about the villains? This was such a fresh take on Riddler, having him be a Batman fanboy, using his riddles to secretly speak to Batman instead of as a way of taunting him. And if I never said so publicly, let me do it now. The Penguin might be one of the greatest pieces of television I've ever seen. I was completely hooked after, and this is not an exaggeration, the first scene. I could obviously gush about how much I love this world for hours, but I've got a larger point to make here. In contrast to the Batman Epic Crime Saga, the DCU is the new interconnected cinematic universe helmed by James Gunn and Peter Safran. It's the successor to the DCEU, the collection of films in the previous continuity primarily inspired by the vision of Zack Snyder. This new take on the world of DC has 3 official entries so far: Creature Commandos, Superman, and Peacemaker Season 2. Now, I know that Season 2 is probably setting off some alarm bells in your brain. Don't worry. The point is, this is a new continuity with a new version of most of the DC characters we know and love. Superman is no longer played by Henry Cavill, but David Corenswet. Lex Luthor is Nicholas Hoult instead of Jesse Eisenberg, and Jason Momoa, who portrayed Aquaman not too long ago, is now going to be Lobo in the new Supergirl movie. From what we've seen so far of the DCU, it is a vast, sprawling, extremely comic-booky paradise of sci-fi, fantasy, and all manner of out-of-this-world nonsense. Creature Commandos showed us monsters, mutated metahumans, super-intelligent AI, and mind-altering magic users like Cersei. Then things ramped up another few notches in Superman, where Lex was building pocket universes and cloning aliens in petri dishes. We've got city-destroying kaiju, Green Lantern obliterating tanks with a gigantic construct of his middle finger, and Superman using freeze breath to save his flying dog and a mutant baby from a black hole. This world is bonkers, just like the comic books that they're inspired by. The comics where a fifth-dimensional imp in a top hat loves to play tricks on the flying man in blue pajamas, where the strongest woman in the world was sculpted out of clay and brought to life by the Greek gods, and a man dressed like a bat is almost the world's greatest detective. He's narrowly beaten out by a talking monkey who dresses like Sherlock Holmes. That's the world of DC Comics, and that's the world James Gunn has brought to life in his new continuity, pulling from all eras of Superman's almost 100-year history. We got it all. He's got the Crystal Palace in the North Pole where numbered robots watch over his alien artifacts. He's friends with super geniuses and space cops. He wears hypno glasses that make people confuse his face so he'll never be recognized as Clark Kent. That is the Superman we have now, and that is the Superman of the DCU. And therein lies the problem. Matt Reeves' Gotham does not feel like it fits in the same world that we've seen in the DCU. Think about it. Remember that scene where Robert Pattinson's Batman is chasing down the Penguin? Remember that car chase? How visceral and real it felt? The simple spectacle of a few cars crashing. That was enough to get us on the edge of our seats, because that's real danger to characters like this, in a world like that. Now imagine, during that car chase, Green Lantern flies by overhead. Or, during the final act when the Riddler's plan is flooding the streets, what if Superman or Mr. Terrific flew in and started saving civilians? Are you really gonna look me in the eye and tell me that that fits? That it doesn't completely break the immersion? See, the problem is that these two worlds are so strongly stylized in opposite directions. The existence of metahumans, like in the DCU, completely quashes the tension and immersion of a realistic Reeves Gotham City. This is a Batman who almost broke his neck trying to glide 100 yards off a medium-sized building. A Batman who has to inject himself with adrenaline to fight a handful of normal guys. And at the same time, we've got Hawkgirl assassinating dictators by dropping them 100 feet above the town square. Mr. Terrific tracking Superman with the nanites he secretly injected into his blood. And Metamorpho building a miniature star, literally achieving handheld nuclear fusion in under a minute. To see these two worlds collide would be so jarring, so tonally off-putting and visually confusing that the final product is practically doomed from the start. And I mean, let's run with this for a second. What if we did roll over Battinson into the DCU? That means he would, at some point, have to fight both Clayface and Dr. Phosphorus, two Gotham villains we got to see in Creature Commandos. Clayface is, of course, a gigantic mud man with shape-shifting powers that can smash apart brick walls and impersonate anyone perfectly. What is this Batman gonna do to that? This isn't the Arkham games. He doesn't have ice grenades or remote explosive gel. You can't hit him with that circle, square, square, square combo. He's a guy with very breakable bones. Or what about Doc Phosphorus? Completely bulletproof, can turn anyone with a single casual touch into ash, walks straight through steel walls as he melts them into molten putty. Do you really hate Battinson that much that you want to pit him up against that? But this isn't even a me problem. Matt Reeves agrees, or at least we can basically infer as much. From what he and James Gunn have said about it, Reeves wants his own separate continuity. He wants the ability to control his little world, to tell the version of his story, the story that's already been incredible so far. He wants to be able to complete this story, the epic crime saga, without interference. Do you really think his artistic vision for the down-to-earth, realistic, street-tier Batman includes Bruce moonlighting as a Justice League member on the floating watchtower in space? Do you think he wants this Batman from a Gotham with no metahumans to help Superman and Wonder Woman fight Darkseid or Gorilla Grodd? Obviously not. Now, I know I'm biased, because I clearly don't want that, but I do think it's important to point out that the people who keep shouting for Battinson to be in the DCU really just do not give a shit about what Matt Reeves wants or thinks. Despite the fact that it's his vision that got them to love this character so much, they seem to disregard the 4 or 5 separate times he and James Gunn have said, no, Matt does not want to do that. Which is weird because the consequences should be obvious. Merging these two worlds will absolutely make both of them worse. Either they attempt to keep their differences during the merger, which would make Batman hilariously underpowered and completely impotent when interacting with Justice League members, completely out of his depth as they battle aliens and undead freaks while he struggles to unzip his glide suit and get away, or they alter his Batman to make him fit better, giving him his comic book levels of martial arts skills, high-tech gadgets, and impossible strategic mind, and in the process, completely lose Matt's vision. That would essentially be like stripping away everything that makes this version of Batman this version of Batman. It would feel like the most corporate-mandated, slop-induced, bizarro version of the Batman that we all like so much. It would be a disaster either way. But, okay, what is the counter-argument anyway? Why do people on Twitter want to see these two polar opposite takes on the world's finest become a team? I'm gonna do my best to play devil's advocate against myself and indulge this viewpoint, because to be clear, I do get it. I don't think the people who want this are insane or anything. So, first point, both the Batman and Superman get the characters in a way we haven't seen in cinematic adaptations before. And when I say get it, I mean that Matt Reeves' conception of Batman is more true to the heart of the character than any previous live-action version. The Tim Burton Batman got the gothic aesthetic of Batman in Gotham. Nolan captured the psychology of the character pretty damn well, and Batfleck was visually the closest we've gotten to the Batman off the comic book pages. But Battinson has the heart of Batman. He's full of rage and fire. He believes he's vengeance incarnate. He's self-destructive, obsessive, deeply introspective, and constantly wrestling with his guilt. He's unstable, and the mission is his entire life. But at the same time, he has immutable moral values. He does not kill or leave people to die, not because it would lead him down a dark path or he's got a strict rule or whatever, but because he has a natural, understandable aversion to it. When he sees the Riddler and his goons echoing his "I am vengeance" shtick, it sickens him, it scares him, it makes him rethink everything and completely alter his methodology, shifting his focus to become a symbol of hope instead of fear. Because at his core, Batman is kind. He's not an asshole or a monster, he's not the Punisher, he's someone who suffered greatly and never wants anyone else to suffer that way again. He wants to scare criminals, not because he wants the criminals to suffer or cower, but so they'll stop doing the crime. That is the spirit of Batman that no previous version has really understood. He doesn't toss people down manholes strapped to a bomb like Keaton Batman, or leave them to die on a crashing train like Bale Batman, or just straight up shoot them with his Batmobile machine gun like Batfleck. He's a damaged person trying to be kind, and that's why he's the best version of Batman we've gotten on the big screen so far. And wouldn't you know it, that's also pretty much the case with David Corenswet as Superman. This is a version of Clark Kent very distinct from previous iterations in how jarringly human he is. So much so that it's literally the point of the whole movie. Unlike the stoic and brooding Henry Cavill or the idyllic and almost magical Christopher Reeve, the new Superman is bursting with emotions and opinions. He's a cornball who loves shitty pop-punk bands and eating breakfast for dinner. He comes up with cheesy catchphrases and gets mad when people make fun of him on Twitter. He crashes out when Lex Luthor steals crypto, smashing into his office and screaming in his face. Reeve Superman would never do anything like this, and Cavill Superman would probably just burn the building down. This new Clark is joyful and hopeful and optimistic. He values life no matter how small. He saves squirrels and even wants to keep the rampaging monsters safe if he can. He's not burdened with some glorious purpose, and he's not a flawless father figure to all of humanity. He's just nice. Instead of worrying about the geopolitics of an international war, he saves people purely because they were in danger, with no further agenda beyond that. And most importantly, his simple but powerful kindness inspires other heroes to be better. He inspires the Justice Gang to change their minds about interfering in Baravia. He exists as a symbol of hope for the citizens of Jaranpur, in a way that so perfectly echoes the hope that Batman represents for the people of Gotham at the end of his film. These two heroes are the same in that way, unabashedly kind and inspiring. And what makes a potential team-up so alluring is that this is practically their only similarity. I already explained how their worlds are very different, but the same can be said about their personalities. Bruce is brooding, melancholic, his humor is drier than hot sandpaper. He's tortured and overly dramatic, and clearly lives inside his head the vast majority of the time. But Superman is outgoing and upbeat. He's friendly with all the citizens he meets. He goofs off with Jimmy and plays along when Steve Lombard makes fun of him. Seeing these two interact would be amazing. They would clash so ridiculously hard, and that would be endlessly entertaining to watch. And while I don't think it would work, I understand why some people see that tonal whiplash between the two as a positive, sort of like cranking up the contrast in an image so the brights are brighter and the darks are darker. You get to see a deeper, more striking picture when you put the two next to each other. They want to see polar opposites mixed together and forced to mingle. But I don't think mixing these two would create a high contrast image. I think you would get a dulled, murky gray instead. Look, I think I've made a very strong argument here about how the tonal clash of both the characters and their worlds just wouldn't work. But do you want to know the actual reason I don't want Battinson in the DCU? It's really simple. I specifically don't want it because we've never gotten comic Batman right on the big screen. Not one time. We've never gotten Robin, like as a kid, not Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, none of them. We've never seen a mid-career Batman with a thriving Bat family. We've never seen him act as a detective and strategist in a world with supernatural elements. No film Batman has had to call in John Constantine or Etrigan to assist him in a murder involving demons. No live-action Bruce Wayne is friends with Oliver Queen and Ted Kord. We've never seen him in a blue and gray suit, interact with a Lazarus Pit or Solomon Grundy. Never seen him fly his jet around the planet to solve international mysteries. Unless you count Michael Keaton in the Flash movie, which I absolutely do not. There are so many incredible and fun elements of this character that have never been adapted. Batman always has to be grounded or realistic or overly edgy, and I like some of those interpretations, don't get me wrong. Between the Dark Knight trilogy and the Matt Reeves film, I love these takes on Batman. But I read comics, and I like the Batman we get in those comics. The version of Batman you can absolutely see acting as a member of the Justice League, with a utility belt full of kryptonite rings and bat shark repellent. A Batman with a hall of special suits in the Batcave designed for trips to the Arctic or the jungle or volcanic caverns. I want the Batman who's larger than life, who can craft a special bullet to defeat Darkseid or overpower Wonder Woman's lasso of truth with sheer stupid audacity. People keep saying they need Pattinson and Corrin Sweat as their world's finest, but let's zero in on that. World's finest. That's the phrase people keep using to describe this team-up. It's named after an old comic run from the Golden and Silver Age, following adventures featuring both Superman and Batman. And there's a modern run by the same name out right now, by Mark Waid and Dan Mora. This is my favorite comic series, guys. It is so damn good because it's completely and unapologetically comics. Superman and Batman aren't enemies or rivals. They don't clash or begrudgingly get along. They are best friends. They have the highest opinion of one another. They trust each other deeply and work as equals, often bantering and showing mutual respect. And the vast majority of the time, they're joined by Robin, a teenage Dick Grayson, who has his own friendship with and admiration for Superman. Batman is serious, but not nihilistic. He's capable of dry humor, compassion, and even optimism. He's willing to trust and delegate. He'll let Superman or Robin take the lead sometimes. He allows others to help him and doesn't collapse emotionally when they get hurt. And because this version of Batman is both fantastical and emotionally intelligent, we get some of the coolest shit you've ever seen. Like when Bruce and Clark manage to defeat a mind-controlled Hal Jordan by combining their wills into one to overpower his control on the Green Lantern ring, stealing it off his finger, and temporarily fusing into one Kryptonian super bat detective ninja beast of a character. Or when their bodies get swapped while fighting a villain, and instead of immediately crashing out, they still manage to win because they just know each other so well. That is my world's finest. That's the version of Superman and Batman we have never once gotten in live action. That's the version we deserve. It would fit so perfectly in the over-the-top comic booky sci-fi magic world established in James Gunn's Superman. This is an opportunity to get a wonderful, wacky version of Batman we've never seen on the big screen before, perfectly suited to blend seamlessly with our new Superman. And we would still get to have the gritty modern noir Batman played by Robert Pattinson at the same time, all without trampling on Matt Reeves' vision. To me, the choice is abundantly clear. Keep Battinson out of the DCU. Stay frosty.